Number 3 is Georgia. And you know what? It's pretty remarkable to me that Georgia won 11 games last year, won the SEC, and people are out here saying, you kind of had a down year. But that is how much Kirby Smart has risen the standard in Athens. Okay? So there's a lot of questions about this team. I'll be completely honest. A lot of people are saying this is a down year for Georgia. For Georgia, keep in mind. Not in general. This is the number 3 team in the country and the 3HM. And the reasoning for that is you look at them on paper, they return just 42% of their offensive production, according to Bill Connolly. They have a new quarterback, a new starting running back. They have a bunch of new receivers. Just 51% of this defense comes back. Look, they're very good in the trenches. We know that. It's Georgia. They've always been. But I'm going to tell you some stats that explained Georgia's flaws last year. This is why Georgia was very good and maybe not elite up to the Georgia standard. We know the issue with them last year. This is the obvious. They had 31 drops. Top 5 in the FBS. Can't happen. Just can't happen. Self-inflicted wounds. But last year, an underrated stat, they caught just 29 of 83 contested targets. Just 34% of 50-50 balls they caught. But here's the kicker. Here's the kicker in Georgia. So a lot of people assumed last year, Brock Bowers, Ladd McConkey, George Pickens, they're gone, but let's look at the recruiting ranking. Let's box score scout a little bit. Oh, Georgia's at the top 5 again. I guess they'll just reload. Guys like that don't come around too often. Those are 1,000-plus yard receivers in the NFL, okay? So here's what perfectly quantifies Georgia's weakness last year. In 2022, Georgia led college football in total plays of 20-plus yards. 2023, they were second in the SEC, top 3 in college football. 2024, you know what they were? They were 9th in the SEC. So bear with me, because I'm going to give a metaphor here. Evaluating an offense in football is like building a house. Okay? So when a storm comes, this house has to be strong enough to waver. So the quarterback is the house, all right? The offensive line is the cement, the foundation of where the house was built on. It protects the house. It keeps it afloat. It keeps it healthy, all right? The running backs and receivers, well, they're the electricity. They're the pop. They're what gives the house life, right? What makes people be able to live in it from a house standpoint, but also what makes it going, okay? Georgia didn't have a lot of pop last year, and I just gave you the stats as to why. So I look at this roster, and I say, who's going to bring that? Because Georgia is going to be very good, arguably the highest floor in college football, right? But are they going to be great? Because Brock Bowers they don't come around often. You can't just replace a guy like that. If last year's Georgia season taught you anything, it's that you can't just replace guys like that, okay? So Zach Branch went after him hard in the portal. He's a speedster. He's quick. He got some Tyreek Hill comparisons coming out of high school. Noah Thomas from Texas A&M. Who's going to be that guy for them that can give them some pop? Because Georgia, they had a foundation. They had a nice house in Carson Beck, but that house didn't have much electricity. It didn't have much pop. And that's why they almost lost to Kentucky last year and scored just 13 points, right? That's why their offense couldn't get much going against Notre Dame. Had some bad drops in that game. They had to beat teams a certain way last year. Against Texas, the 2 times they beat them, they took Texas and dragged them down to their level and beat them with experience. They beat them at playing their own game, and that's exactly what they did. So Zachariah Branch, Noah Thomas, guys like that, and Colby Young, Dylan Bell, Lawson Lucky at the tight end position. London Humphreys. I think we're going to see more of him this year. Georgia really tried to utilize the screen game last year. And with Arian Smith, didn't necessarily. It kind of worked. But when those guys were trying to get open downfield, well, they weren't necessarily able to do that. They didn't have that second gear in their offense. That costed them that second gear that we're so used to Georgia having in the prior years. So, that being said, also, I talked about the electricity, and it wasn't just the receivers. They couldn't run the ball well last year. 3.9 yards per carry as a team. 84th in the nation. 12th in the SEC. Georgia couldn't quite run the ball last year. It's pretty nuts, but it's true. So, Noah Frazier, the sophomore high 4-star blue chip running back. Nate Frazier is going to be huge for them, including others too. Josh McCray. They went after him in the portal from Illinois. Roderick Robinson II. Okay, a young guy. So this running back room, facing it, just telling it how it is. You're going to have to see more from him. Going to have to. Nate Frazier's huge, though. 5 yards per carry in 2024. Gunnar Stockton. I think Gunnar Stockton was way better last year than what his stats say. I actually thought he was very good in that Notre Dame game. I just think Georgia had some crucial drops. Okay. We know the defense took a step back. 22 points allowed per game. 24th in the FBS. Not up to the Kirby standard, right? We know that. So we see a lot of just really good players in that Georgia roster. But who's going to be like the Quay Walker, the Nakobe Dean, the Jordan Davis? KJ Bolden is a guy I'm looking at. Great as a freshman. He was fantastic. Dalen Everett, he was great in that Texas game. Who's going to be that solidified, clear first rounder that Georgia has stacked the board with over the last few years? On the positive side, their schedule is not as hard as it was last year. And if you remember last year, they had a freaking gauntlet. You get, Texas, Alabama, others too, Clemson and non-con, Tennessee. Yeah, Georgia played probably Ole Miss. Georgia played the entire top 5 of the SEC last year. Entirety, except for themselves. So this schedule is going to be easier. They don't have as hard of a non-con. They don't draw Clemson. They play Marshall instead. They get Alabama at home. At Auburn's kind of trappy. They get Ole Miss at home. Florida on a neutral's tough. They get Texas at home. So a favorable schedule, nonetheless. So last year, with all the issues that they had, okay, I bring it up of they didn't have pop. They were lacking explosive plays. Guess what, man? They went 11-2 last year and won the SEC. Despite being 9th in the conference in explosive plays. So the bottom half of the conference. So I say all of that is flaws to say this team can still be in the national championship picture. And remember, there is no 2024 Ohio State this year. There is no overpowered Saban Alabama. So you could get Georgia at its B+, like kind of last year, and they could mess around and win the whole thing. Now, that being said, their schedule's a step back from last year, but it still is tough. Okay, you play at Tennessee, Bama, at Auburn, Ole Miss, Florida, Texas. 5 of the top 6 SEC teams, okay? So now, the better part is they only get 2 of those on the road. So a lot of those they're playing at home. Long story short, Georgia has the foundation. I think they have the house in Gunnar Stockton. But what about the electricity? That's the biggest question right now with Georgia football going into 2024. And who's that guy going to be? I'm looking at Zachariah Branch as one of the biggest X factors in the entire, not just Georgia, but in the entire sport as a whole.